Allow me to introduce moderator and panelist Stephanie Moyers, marketing manager at American Embryo Registry.
Hello.
Panelist Lisa Russo Pettigrew, founder and CEO of the Gutai Foundation. And panelist Kristin, an NEDC recipient mom.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. We are really happy you're here, and I've been asked to please share that if you want to continue the conversation and see more, you can reach us on Twitter or Facebook at Fertility Planit with hashtag #FPLA14. We'd love to hear from you. And we've had this great introduction already, so I don't want to say too much about what we're here to talk about, but embryo donation is an incredible option for family building. We have our daughter, my husband's in the back, 3 weeks old today, after 6.5 years of trying, and we'll get into more of that later, but I want to turn it over to our moderator so we can get started.
Thank you, Lisa. My name is Stephanie Moyers. I am with American Embryo Registry. It is a new, secure online database that is clinic-to-clinic embryo donation, takes out the middleman, and we just launched our website on Tuesday. It is embryoregistry.org. So, unfortunately, there are no embryos on there yet, but we're working to get them there through your clinics. We would like to share, as they said in the introduction, both Kristin and Lisa have had their families through donor embryos or embryo adoption. Technically, it is not adoption. It is legally not adoption, nor technically, because it is not a live child. However, when you talk to many of these families, they will tell you that they gave birth to their adopted child. And you've experienced pregnancy, childbirth, you bond with that child before it's even born. So they both took different routes, different avenues to get to the same point of having beautiful children. And Kristin went through one of the embryo donation agencies. She went through the National Embryo Donation Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. And Lisa took several different routes. And I would like her to explain her journey and how she came to having this precious 3-week-old child. If you want to start.
Sure. So first, when we found out there were infertility issues, we didn't give up for 6.5 years. For most of that, we tried with our own genetics. We tried IVF, IUI, and after our first failed IVF cycle, our clinic gave us an embryo donation brochure, and we thought, oh, how wonderful, what a great concept. But I think we just weren't ready yet. We kind of put it in our file cabinet and thought, okay, we'll think about this later, but we're just not there yet. And so after many years of struggling and disappointment, we got there. And the way we went about it was we had a fertility therapist that we would see on and off before sometimes cycles and after, whenever we needed it. And we asked her opinion about it. And how does one go forward? And what is the difference between adoption and donation? And through her, it became clear to us that we wanted to go the donation route and not go through an agency to adopt, excuse me, because the process absolutely has its benefits, but it would be the same requirements for a regular adoption would be demanded of us in terms of home study and all of those wonderful things that you go through when you do a traditional adoption. With donation, it works a little bit differently, and I'll let Stephanie speak to that. But our personal journey was that we went through our clinic, our fertility clinic. We put our name on a list, and eventually came up to it takes a while. It took us a couple of years to get to where we had embryos to choose from. And while we were waiting, we tried 2 other cycles with 2 different clinics and weren't successful. And then when we came to our fertility specialist list, and he said, you're now can choose, and we can help you. We went with that, and we were blessed with our beautiful daughter 3 weeks ago. I gave birth, and she's amazing. So that's the short story of our journey. And is there anything I haven't covered that you...
No, I think that you've sort of given a good
general,
overview
and then
of
questions can come later.
that route that you took. On the flip side, Kristin went through one of the donor embryo agencies, and there are really only about a handful of embryo donation agencies in the United States. There is the Snowflakes Foundation, there's National Embryo Donation Center, Embryos Alive, Embryo Adoptions of Cedar Park, and then there are several other smaller ones. But she chose to go through the National Embryo Donation Center, and I will let her discuss her journey.
Yeah, essentially, after receiving the difficult news that, my husband and I essentially could only conceive through IVF, we wanted to learn more about that. We actually, at the time, did not know a lot about IVF. And so after exploring it online, we literally stumbled upon embryo donation. And we were, puzzled. We had never heard of it, which I think is pretty common for a lot of people. They have not heard about this. And, even before we decided to take steps toward IVF, which was an option, we actually got really excited about embryo donation and adoption. And so we did, because it was local, we started the process through what Stephanie mentioned was the Snowflake, which is in Orange, California. And we decided to take the more route of, while it's obviously not legally and technically an adoption, we went through somewhat of an adoption process in that we did have a home study. We actually have a contract, which we'll talk about a little bit later, with the family that we adopted from. We took adoption classes, and it was actually a wonderful process. Just personally, we do, our personal view is that of adoption, and the experience for us was that. And so we did that. We implanted 2 embryos through the National Embryo Donation Center after we did our home study through Snowflake. We decided we wanted to transfer. If you do it through Snowflake, you do have a clinic, so you can do it here in California. We loved the idea of doing it through the National Embryo Donation Center in that it just encompasses everything, including the home study and the contract and the matching, and then also the implantation. So we implanted 2 embryos, and the result is my beautiful 3-year-old daughter, who is in the back. And hi. And she's just a gift and just such a delight. So that's essentially my story.
Thank you very much. And I will ask this of both of you, and with your daughter already 3, to what extent of conversation and openness do you plan to talk to them as they grow up about their origins and about their genetic history? Lisa?
Yeah, I think we spent a lot of time thinking about this when we were ourselves coming to peace with letting go of the genetic part. And we both were on the same page about being really transparent from the beginning. So, even when she was in utero, I would be saying to her, you have a special story, and telling her that story. Even today when we were coming here, just letting her know, you're 3 weeks old today, and hopefully you're going to inspire many people who are wanting to have a child. And so our goal is to really just not have her remember a day where she was told her story, but that it's always been integrated into her life. So that's how we're going to approach communicating this to her.
I love that, Lisa. Very, very similar in just making it always just a part of her her journey that we're so proud, and we love her story. And it is an interesting topic because there's so many books, on adoption, but they're really the first book ever to be written about embryo donation was through the NEDC, and they do have a sweet book that they wrote. But yeah, we hope to always just make it a part of her beautiful journey. And as Lisa mentioned, I love that, the integration into her life versus, just this defined moment. So similar.
Yes, the NEDC did fund a book that Kristin referred to. It's called Training Wheels, Where Did I Come From? And I do believe now there are also 2 other books now out on the market that have been written about people's journey through embryo donation and adoption. So if you're interested in those, and they're children's books on to read to your child, to just start integrating that language and into their senses and into their vernacular, so that it's not a sudden discussion that you have, that they know their origins. Now Kristin is in an open, as she explained, she's in an open communication relationship with her donors, and I believe that you are in an anonymous arrangement as well.
Yeah, it's semi-anonymous.
Semi-anonymous. Why don't you address your communication relationship in terms of semi-anonymous, and then I'll let Kristin talk about what it's like to be in an open communication with the donors, the genetic parents, actually, of her daughter.
Great. So for us, I do want to share that one of the first cycles we did, it was an open situation, and we had to hire a lawyer and draw up a contract because we did it independently. We didn't go through an agency, and it was a wonderful experience. The cycle worked. We got pregnant, but we lost the baby. It had no heartbeat at 7-8 weeks, and so we still keep in touch with that family. So I just want to advocate for open transparent communication. With this situation, it was through our clinic, and the donating couple wants to remain anonymous, but has been willing to send through the clinic each year a picture of our daughter's sister. And so that's the arrangement we've made. And so we sent a picture when she was born, and we'll continue to exchange photos through the clinic. And then we did request and ask that when the children our child is old enough, if she would like to meet her sister, if they would be open to that. And they came back through the clinic saying, yes, that they would consider it and stay in communication this way. So it's sort of somewhere in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, and actually ours is somewhat similar in that it is open, but we essentially drafted up a contract, and we really had kind of the authority over it, as she would be our daughter. And we had we had a social worker who was working with us and the other family, and we know their first names, and we were able to receive all of our daughter's family and medical history from the family. So we have all that information. We have pictures of both the male and female donor. We also had received, prior to my daughter being born, we had received pictures of my daughter's one genetic sibling that she has. And so our contract is actually very similar. We essentially send them around my daughter's birthday. We send a picture of our daughter and just a brief update. And it's just been wonderful. I actually, ironically, was telling my husband, I would love to meet them. I think initially when you go into it, you're nervous about this relationship, and are they going to want my child back? And there's just none of that. It's the family has been wonderful. When my daughter was born, I wanted to send them an announcement, a picture, and the family actually came back and said, we don't need that. We don't need an announcement. We don't want them to think we're looking over their shoulders. So it's been a really positive experience. And we also, in our contract, we set up that we wanted our daughter to be able to reach out to her genetic sibling when she's 18, if she should want that. And who knows, maybe we would even do it sooner. But So at this point, yeah, it's very similar. It's open but limited, and it's just been a wonderful experience. And I think, kind of going along with what Lisa said, just having that openness about her story, we also wanted to be, open with that relationship in the future if she should want to pursue just meeting them. So.
Thank you. In many cases, and I believe in both of these ladies and their family cases, through receiving donor embryos, there are usually, and it depends on the program or the clinic, sometimes there may be only one remaining embryo, or there may be 10 remaining embryos after they have completed their family. So, or after they have had their first child. So then the discussion might become, do we want to go back for a sibling? We have embryos that are her genetic siblings, and so maybe in a year or two, do we want to consider going back? If that, and that may be an option. Then if that is not an option, then they also then have the control on redonating those embryos, paying it forward to another couple that can share the joy and happiness that they have been able to. So I do believe that they both have remaining embryos from their donors. So that may be an option in the future as well. I'm going to take a moment and take questions from the audience if anybody has any questions. Yes, please. The average cost, and again, it depends on the sort of the route that you take. With the agencies, it's they usually have pretty much a set cost, and then the clinics are usually a little lower. I would think that, I know that with the agencies, you run anywhere from about $5,000 to about $12,000, and that includes the legal contract, your home study, because with most of the agencies you do have to go through a traditional home study, as if you were going through traditional adoption. It usually does not include your medications, and in some cases it does not include the other medical treatment. In the case that Kristin went through by going through the National Embryo Donation Center, they are different from the other programs in that they are clinic-based, and they have one clinic, and it is in Knoxville, Tennessee. You actually travel to their clinic, you meet with the physician, the embryologist, and your patient coordinator, and then you return for your transfer. They house their embryos on premise. With the clinic, they draw from their own patient base. When a patient has agreed, they have finished their family, they have remaining embryos from their IVF cycle, and they want to donate them within the clinic to another family, then your costs are a bit lower because you're staying within the same area. So I would say probably an average range, depending on which route you take, it would be anywhere from about $5,000 to, I would say, no more than about $15,000 for your initial cycle. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm curious how the match is actually made and how much information and how much you got to participate in selecting your embryos.
I'll start with Lisa on that.
This last cycle, they gave us a list of the donated embryos that they had, and then they recommended the most viable ones just by communicating which were blastocysts, which were 3-day stage embryos. Sorry, I forgot the mic. I hope everybody heard that. Did everybody hear that? Okay. Then they asked us to narrow it down to three different donating families, and we did, and then they sent us all of the information. So if there were photographs, they sent us all the mental health, the physical health, family history, et cetera, and we were able, in the privacy of our home, to just kind of review all of that. And then because we knew and we had an ongoing relationship with our fertility doctor, we asked, okay, so these are the 3 that we've narrowed it down to. What do you think? Because you know what we've been through. What are the most viable? And they were the ones we were resonating with, so that's how we chose them. Yeah.
So we filled out a full profile for donor families, and it was essentially medical history. It was our just kind of those main questions: our educational history, our careers, just some of that information. So we had a full profile, we had pictures, and so at the NEDC there is, I'm not sure her position title, who matched us, but they're
Patient coordinator.
yeah, patient coordinator. So she actually would look at our profile, and we were able to generally select some things. They ask you questions: are you willing to what ethnicity, what how many would you be willing, embryos. So we were selected. They sent our profile to a family. Just she kind of looked at, some of those factors, and they were able to review our profile first, the donor family, and then they selected us, and then they sent, similar as what Lisa said, all that information to us about that family. And so we only saw one family, but we did have the option, of course, to say, no, I think we'd like to maybe be matched with another family. But after just prayer, and we just felt like it was a great match, and there was really nothing that concerned us. And so ours was pretty easy, but potentially you could say no to that family and go to another family. So that was our matching.
And similar for us as well. If we felt that it wasn't the right fit for any reason, we could have gone back into the pool and chosen a different grouping. Yeah.
We've been freezing, the industry has been freezing embryos for going on 25 years now. And techniques and technology has improved greatly. There have been, people say, well, but what if these embryos have been frozen for 18 years? Are they still viable? And there was a case last year, and it was in the news, that a woman had adopted, and I always use the quotation marks, embryos that had been frozen for 18 years, and she had a healthy, beautiful little boy from that set of 18-year-old frozen embryos. So, many times, especially if they are good quality to begin with, they're still going to be viable. And so we're finding out that these embryos that have been frozen for many years are still producing healthy, beautiful children. So that may be one thing if you're looking into being a recipient of donated embryos. You need to work closely with your embryologist to find out the quality and the grade of your embryos. The most conservative estimate right now is there are over 625,000 embryos frozen in just the United States, and we're making more every day. And if you or someone you know is considering starting into a fertility treatment, if they're looking into IVF, and they're going to have both a donor egg and donor sperm, you're creating more embryos. Why create more if there's so many available? Now, at any given time, there are probably about 20,000 embryos out there that are available for to be donated to recipient families of the 600 and some odd thousand. Most of that high number are families who still are saying, well, we're retaining them for our own use. But many times they have just not been able to come to that decision of what do we do with them. They may not want to have them destroyed, but they're not sure what they want to do with them. And I think, as Lisa said, in their journey, it took a little while to wrap around the non-genetic concept that this child is not genetically connected to them, but and the donors have a similar feeling that, am I giving this potential child, am I giving this life away that someone else is going to raise? So the donors wrestle with many, many emotional issues as well, as do the recipient parents. So, they are out there. This industry is growing, and as is the fertility industry. So the options are getting even greater every day, and the choices are out there. And again, I will take more questions. We can take questions. Yes.
Hi. When you redonate embryos, does that go back through the agency, and do both families, the second recipient family and the donor family, have access to the same amount of information about each other as in the first donation?
I'll let Kristin address that. Are you?
I'm a little sorry.
If you redonate, if you are complete and you still have embryos, when you redonate, if you gave them back, would you give them back to the NEDC or back to the original donating family?
Yeah, I believe they would go back to the original donating family, and then they would be able to match them with another family. And we were also in our contract, we actually put that if that were to be the case, that we would also have access to that family that they, donated to. So there is that open, open information there. Yeah.
And what is your arrangement on that?
Yeah, we have 4 remaining, and I think we have a 3-year period to decide if we want to use them. And if we don't, then they go back to the original donating family. Yeah.
So the donating family really retains control of those that are not used by the recipient family. But yet, as Kristin said, then they have, since they are now part of this genetic family, per se, that they will have a say in who the next recipient will go to. And there are a number of different scenarios through this wonderful method of family building that range anywhere from completely anonymous, which is what we had talked about earlier, different relationships, communication, to where the donor, all you know about your donor is their genetic and their genetic and medical history, to a completely open, almost amazing open communication that I am aware of 2 families, donor family and the recipient family, that they actually go to Disney World every year together, all the children and both sets of parents. And that's an extremely open relationship there. So it runs the gamut of how these families are created. So, yes, ma'am. There are several avenues of information that you can Google about donor embryos. The program that is sponsoring this talk today is the American Embryo Registry, and it is once we get our embryos going and online, that will be a situation where you could possibly refer your patient to why don't you maybe check this out? This is another option that you can go online and search for embryos that are available nationwide, and then if she finds a group of embryos, say, in Florida, then the two clinics will talk and communicate with the paperwork, and if all parties are agreeable, then the clinic in Florida then will ship the embryos to your clinic where the transfer is done. So it's taking that next step to giving both the donor and the recipient a little more control over their family building. When the donors are ready to take that next step and donate their embryos. Some clinics, like with Lisa's, some clinics or families are hesitant to donate within the same area, same geographic area. So that's one reason why the registry will open it up on a nationwide basis. If say her clinic, they have a donor, but they really would like their embryos to be outside of the Southwest. They want them to go outside of California, Nevada, Utah, go east. So that would be an option. Okay.
So you're asking within your practice, I just want to make sure I understand, how do you begin to then even open the conversation? How does one begin to open the dialogue with your clients, right? And yes. Well, I know the Snowflake's website has an enormous amount of information, and I know your site is going
Yes.
to, right, have...
And also the NEDC site, which is embryodonation.org, and then there's another site called embryoconnection.org. So there's building information and starting to being disseminated out through the internet.
And I'm happy to speak to anyone that you would want. Yeah, just so you know. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm more curious about the medical procedure or the process that that is involved with this. I'm only familiar with an IVF cycle, so is it similar to that as far as the medications, the shots, or what is entailed in medically
You don't
speaking?
have the stem drugs.
That's much less invasive.
Since and both of these ladies have gone through both types. The medications are much easier on your body because it's building the uterine lining up instead of overstimulation. So it's much easier, and your medications are not quite as expensive with that. So you get onto the cycle, building through the medications, building your uterine lining up. And then at that point, it's a matter of, it's the same transfer procedure as it would be with IVF, the actual with the catheter, and then you do your follow-up with your home physician.
I'm sorry, we can't take any more questions.
sorry.
Anybody that wants to talk with them, you can talk
Absolutely.
after, but right now we need the room. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, we would. I'd like, if possible, if you would like to meet Kristin's daughter. She is 3 years old.
We'll just bring her up for the camera real quick. So you see her. This is a result of embryo donation and adoption. You want to come up here? So this is Karis. She's, how old are you?
3.
And what's your name?
Harris.
That's Karis. So there's a little example.
And then here's a really tiny
And
example of Kara's.
And here
This
is
is Aggie. My husband is bringing her up now. She's 3 weeks old today, so we can't believe we made it here, but. So I do want to just say this. I know we have to close now, but I know that for even right before she was born, my husband and I looked at each other and we were so worried. Will we love her the same? Will we, and I just want to just say that the love is so incredible. I can't imagine, and I know Kristin feels this way, loving our own genetic-based child any more than the love we feel for Aggie, and as I'm sure you feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Thank
It's
you all.
amazing.
And if any questions, we'll talk after off camera. Thank you. Yeah, sure.